All right, we're on to our next day of the Dragon Eye. So we are going to be really focusing on the scales today. Last class we really focused on making the eye itself, but today it's all about scales. And when we think of scales, you probably think of like that really, well, scaly, rough kind of texture that it comes up with, or that it creates, I should say. So let's just talk about texture for a little bit. As a heads up, some of this information, like about actual and implied texture, be listening for that actual texture and implied texture. Those are going to be key vocabulary words that you are going to see on the end of the semester quiz. So definitely, we'll be talking about it more throughout the semester as well. But start letting that soak in and understand the meaning of it. Okay? So texture. Texture is how something feels, right? So I want you to think about, how do these feel? Think of a word. If you want to pause this video at any point so that you can have more time to think, feel free to do so. Soft, right? They feel soft, those cotton balls. In comparison, obviously this is going to feel a little bit different. How do you think this is going to feel? Maybe you said rough, right? Those rocks are going to be rough. Versus this, probably not going to feel rough. What would we describe if we were to touch that glossy vase? Probably going to feel smooth, right? Or this, that's definitely going to feel slimy. And if we were to pick up a cob of corn, how would we describe that if we ran our fingers along the edges of it? That's going to probably feel bumpy, right? Or this guy, I think it's a rabbit, I don't even know. We would probably categorize that as fluffy, right? Quite fluffy. Now this one, think about how we would describe that. How would that feel? Maybe you said prickly or pokey or sharp. Here's what I want you to do though. I want you to actually take your finger right now and I want you to touch. Ow! Oh, that hurt. I got prickled. Did you guys? No, you didn't. You didn't get prickled. Okay. Oh, I probably know why. Let's talk about the difference. So here's all of our different textures, right? Let's talk about the difference between actual texture, like when I'm actually touching something, versus implied texture, which is usually going to be drawn. Or in the case of what we're going to be doing today for this project, it's going to be graphic arts, right? It's going to be on our computer. So whereas our picture of our dragon eye is probably going to look scaly, bumpy, rigid, any of those words that you want to use to describe the texture, when you go to actually touch your dragon eye today, it's not going to actually feel that way. It's going to feel smooth because you're touching a device screen, right? So that's what we call implied texture. It looks one way, but it actually doesn't feel that way. It's just how, the drawing or whatever's creating that implied texture makes it look. So that's what we're doing with our scales here. So as a reminder, a quick refresher of last class, I created a little block there so I wouldn't be moving my image. But, oopsies, if I do move my image, you can see I've got my highlights, I've got my pupil, I've got my iris, and I would still, actually on this one, I still need to make the eyeball itself. So that would still need to happen. So let's just move everything back into place here. So if I wanted to do that, the eye itself yet, I'm going to go to whichever line I choose. I'm going to choose curve line again because it does have some curves to it versus a polyline where it tends to be sharper. And I'm simply going to kind of cruise here so it doesn't take too long. You guys feel free to take more time doing this, okay? I'm going to go kind of fast here just to not have a super long video. There we go, and then it kind of clicks into place like that. And then I simply pick my color, maybe something like that. And I don't want that border color. I don't want it looking cartoonish. I could change it a little bit if I wanted to, just like we've been doing. Maybe I add a little more, what do I want? I actually make it a little more white in the center, I think, yeah. I think I like how that looks versus that. Maybe there. Okay, there we go. And then whenever I'm ready, whoopsies, I'm still under the line tool. Let me hit escape. I was wondering why that wasn't working. I'm gonna right click, go to order, and send to back. And now we can see that it's got those, the eye itself behind there too. And if I need to play around with moving things a bit, I can. All right, let's go get everything back into place. Now the scales. We kind of started this last time where we talked about how to create them. I'm going to start with this patch over here. I'm going to start in the upper right because I want to show you guys a little trick that can help you really cruise once we get going. So I'm going to be using shapes. I am actually going to try out this guy where it's kind of like a rounded edges rectangle, and let me fill it in lime green. I'm not actually going to do lime green. However, I think for the video it just shows up really bright. So and I'm going to get rid of my border. I'll go back and change the actual colors of these for my final at some point. But notice how I can round. I'm grabbing that, if you can see it in the video, there's like this tiny little yellow diamond here. I can change how round those edges are. So maybe I want it to look something more like this. That looks kind of nice. And I want you to remember that this dragon eye that we've got going in the background is a template. It is, like, I'm not expecting that your dragon eye looks exactly the same as your template. It's just kind of something to give us like a base to go off of, right? So yeah, I just wanted to throw that reminder out there. Remember too, you can also play around with things like maybe a drop shadow could look kind of cool. It's going to add, do you see how in between all those scales there's like a little shadow bit by it? Maybe you want to add that in. So here, let's see what, here, I'll make the opacity really obvious there. Do you see how all of a sudden that's there? Let's go away and there. Now I don't actually want it that opaque, so I'm going to make it a little bit more transparent. Maybe something like that. And I don't think I want it quite that big either. I just want a little bit of extra detail. Maybe something like that. Looks kind of cool. Okay, so now that I've got that set, I'm going to do Control D for duplicate. And maybe I change it up a little bit, right? We don't want all the scales to look exactly the same. That's going to maybe get a little repetitive and not so interesting. And notice too how I'm not afraid to be going off the edges of the paper. You know what else I'm going to do real quick, you guys? I'm noticing that it is not super easy to see the edges, so I'm going to do something else here real quick just to make it easier to see the edges of these guys. Let's go radial center. Okay, there, I actually like that better. I'm going to delete these guys real quick. Alright, because now I feel like with those blacker, darker edges, it's going to be easier to see this on the video than just plain green. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool, right? Notice I'm even overlapping them. You could have yours overlap too, or they don't have to. I'm going to make another row here. Maybe this row is a little bit thinner. It looks like it's not quite as thick as that other one. I want to go right off the edge of my paper. Not even thinner yet. Duplicate. Maybe this one comes this way. I'm going to just throw a couple on here real quick. I'm holding on my shift button, hitting duplicate, bringing those over. What I want to show you in just a second here is going to be a trick so that you can really cruise on this. Okay, so I've just held it down and I duplicated this whole row. Now I might want to tweak it a little bit, up to you, but I want to show you this trick real quick. And I'm going to hide out of view because I want you to be able to see it all really well. So we're going to do a disappearing teacher trick. Now you see me, now you don't. Oh, now you don't see anything. Uh-oh, let's fix that, huh? There you go. All right, so what I'm going to do, I am clicking on one of my scales here. I'm holding, with my non-dominant hand, I'm holding down the shift button on the keyboard. As with my dominant hand, I am clicking, clicking. Notice how my highlighted box just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So now I've got this whole row highlighted. Check this out. Control D, Control D, Control D, 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 Control D. And I've got a whole bunch of these now. So if you like that look, feel free to go ahead and, I mean, you can really cruise through it fast once you get there. But maybe you want to play around with it a little bit more. I'm going to hit Control D just once. Maybe now I take this whole group and I make it a little bit smaller, right? Just to give it a little bit more variation. And I can pull the whole group around to change things up. And maybe now I hit Control D and this one, maybe I make this grouping bigger again. And maybe I even turn it slightly. And you can also, you know, don't feel like you have to just do the whole groups one at a time. Feel free to move things apart. And you can really get some variety that way as well. Either way, your goal for today is going to be to finish this entire dragon eye. Cover it all. Make sure you get all the way past those edges. I know in kindergarten we learned not to go over the edge. Here we want to, because we want to have that cool look. But once we're done, your next goal is going to be to delete this, and you'll have your image now, right? Tweak it, make it look the way you want. But then you're going to come up to File, and you're going to download it as a JPEG, okay? As soon as you've downloaded it as a JPEG, you are going to come into your art journal right away. Of course, we're going to record our time. We're doing that every day anyway. But then you're going to come to Insert, Image, and you're going to upload it from your computer. If you do this right away, it's probably going to be the last thing on there, so it's going to come up first. So it's going to be real easy to just select that dragon eye, add it on in here, save some room because there's going to be another one, but put it on in there, and then you're ready to go for in what, 4 days-ish, 3-4 days, when this is actually due. Okay, have fun. I cannot wait to see them.